Hello, my name is Steve Adolf, and welcome to our topic, User Story Basics Part 1. What are user stories, and why should we care? Well, if we recall the Postmortem story, we had a situation where a team had successfully delivered a project in terms of being on time, on budget, and probably delivered the defined scope. And yet, no one seemed particularly happy about this accomplishment. And when probed, the team basically said, look, no one really finds the work that we did useful. And this is not an uncommon problem in our industry. If you take data from the Standish Group, they find that some 65% of the features and systems that we build actually create no value for the stakeholders. That's pretty shocking. That red there represents all the waste that you have stayed up late at night for, the weekends that you missed your kid's soccer game or ballet lessons. And so that's the real economics of software development. Our goal with Agile, therefore, is actually to learn from the stakeholders what's really valuable to them, so that we're producing less of that red and more of that valuable green. One of the tools available to us in the Agile world to help us are the idea of user stories. Now, a user story is a pretty simple idea. It just simply captures something of value in a couple of sentences. It's another type of backlog item. As if you recall from other units you may have done, that all the work for a team is in the backlog. If it's not in the backlog, it doesn't get done. Therefore, a user story is just another type of backlog item, another thing on the team's to-do list. But user stories are a little bit special in some ways because their focus is on capturing value. And specifically, the real intent behind a user story is to see that when we finish it, if we cannot deliver to the stakeholder a very thin slice of end-to-end functionality to them. So, if you take this so-called layered cake model of a system where, let's say we have 3 layers, we have a user interface or graphical user interface, some kind of business logic all sitting on top of a database, then our user story is going to describe in a couple of sentences some valuable service or behavior we want out of that system that exercises all those end-to-end capabilities. The intent being, of course, if we were able to deliver or quickly deliver thin slices of the system to the stakeholders and users, they can give us their feedback. And then we can quickly pivot to see whether or not that capability or feature we're trying to deliver to them really lives in that red, or is it in that valuable green? So this is a way that user stories help us learn what is really valuable and avoid creating a lot of waste and hopefully increase the value of the software that we create. This is opposed to, sort of the more traditional approach that we take to software development, where we may develop the system in components or based on our standard requirements. So maybe we have a story that tells us to, or a requirement that tells us to make some database changes. We make some changes to the business logic, and then finally add on the graphical user interface. So what ends up happening here is, yes, we're constantly delivering, for example, these components, but we don't have an end-to-end capability. We don't have anything that necessarily our stakeholders and users can truly give us feedback on to say, are we going in the right direction? Do they really appreciate what they're getting? So if we delay feedback, we don't really get that opportunity to pivot quickly and discover what really is valuable to them. So this approach here tends to delay that feedback. And this is, sometimes we refer to this as the CRUD approach, the create, read, update, and delete kind of stories, where yes, we are building some functionality, but until all these pieces are really put together, there's no opportunity to get real feedback from the user and to really learn what's valuable to them.